So let's get right into it. Russian President Vladimir Putin says the Ukraine war is escalating towards a global conflict after the United States and Britain allowed Ukraine to hit Russia with their weapons. Speaking in a video address from Moscow, Mr. Putin also notes that Russia responded to the use of US and British missiles by firing a new kind of hypersonic medium-range ballistic missile called Oreshnik at a Ukrainian military facility in Dnipro, indicating many more could follow. Mr. Putin, in his latest warnings to the West, says Moscow could strike back, adding that Russia could attack military facilities of those countries which allowed their weapons to be used for the purpose of the war. In his words, Russia is ready for any developments. If anyone still doubts this, they shouldn't. There will always be a response. The president says civilians would be warned ahead of further strikes with a new conventional intermediate-range missile, which he claims traveled at a speed of 2.5 to 3 kilometers per second. Meanwhile, Ukraine's president says the world must respond after Moscow's claim to have fired a new type of ballistic missile. Mr. Zelensky says Russia's use of a new ballistic missile on Dnipro shows a clear and severe escalation of the war, adding that Russia has no interest in peace. He notes that the move is President Putin's second step in escalating the war, the first being the use of more than 10,000 North Korean soldiers in the ongoing conflict. According to the Ukrainian president, Mr. Putin disregards calls from China, Brazil, European countries, the United States, and others, and he is doing everything to prolong the conflict. He says a lack of tough reactions to Russia's actions sends a message that such behavior is acceptable. In the meantime, the United States says it's aware of the developments in the Russia-Ukraine war and that Washington is working with close allies to help Ukraine prepare. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says the U.S. will continue its ironclad support for Ukraine to put Kyiv in the best position on the battlefield. NATO also says Russia's use of the weapon will not change the course of the conflict.
Obviously, we are aware of Russia's launch of an intermediate-range ballistic missile against Ukraine. Ukraine has withstood countless attacks from Russia. We have seen that repeatedly over the past more than 2 years now. We briefed Ukraine and our close allies, partners in recent days to help them prepare. As the president announced earlier this year, the United States is providing Ukraine with hundreds of additional Patriot and AMRAAMs missiles to strengthen its air defense. Many of these air defense missiles have been delivered already as a consequence of that president's decisions to divert air defense exports to Ukraine, and deliveries of additional air defense missiles to Ukraine are ongoing. And as I just stated, the president on September 29th to be more exact, he talked about surging continued assistance, security assistance to Ukraine. And so we're going to continue to do that, and that is going to make sure they're strengthening their capabilities, including air defense, and put Ukraine in the best possible position on the battlefield. And just yesterday, as I mentioned moments ago, we were able to announce another security assistance. And so that's going to continue. And so we will not be deterred here. We are going to continue to make sure that the Ukrainians have what they need on the ground.
And Pentagon's Deputy Press Secretary Sabrina Singh has announced that the United States was pre-informed briefly, though, of Russia's launch of an intermediate-range ballistic missile into Ukraine. She also responded to President Putin's warning to the West, calling it a dangerous, reckless rhetoric.
I can confirm that Russia did launch an experimental intermediate-range ballistic missile. This IRBM was based on Russia's RS-26 Rubezh intercontinental ballistic missile model. In terms of notifications to the United States was pre-notified briefly before the launch through nuclear risk reduction channels. For more, I'd refer you to state on that. And I think your third question was on our reaction to Putin's comments. I mean, we've seen this type of, dangerous, reckless rhetoric before from President Putin. what we're focused on is continuing to support Ukraine with what it needs. Ukraine, as you know, has been successful in continuing to push back against Russian aggression. We just rolled out another $275 million package yesterday. You're going to see more packages continue in the weeks and months ahead left of this administration. So that's what we're really focused on. Of course, we're going to take seriously the rhetoric coming out of Russia, but our focus remains on arming Ukraine and supporting Ukraine what it needs.
On the other side, Russia's ally North Korea has accused the United States of ramping up tension and provocation, saying the Korean Peninsula has never faced such risks of nuclear war as now. In a speech at a military exhibition in Pyongyang, President Kim Jong-un said his previous experience of negotiations with Washington only highlighted its aggressive and hostile policy against North Korea. Mr. Kim's latest speech comes amid international criticism over increasingly deepening military cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow, with North Korea having sent more than 10,000 troops to Russia to support its war against Ukraine. And a non-profit research group based in the UK, the Open Source Center, is reporting that Russia is estimated to have supplied North Korea with more than 1 million barrels of oil since March this year. This report comes from satellite imagery analysis from the center. Leading experts in UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy says the oil is payment for the weapons and troops Pyongyang has sent Moscow to fuel its war in Ukraine. These transfers violate UN sanctions, which ban countries from selling oil to North Korea, except in small quantities, in an attempt to stifle its economy to prevent it from further developing nuclear weapons. North Korea is the only country in the world not allowed to buy oil on the open market. The number of barrels of refined petroleum it can receive is capped by the United Nations at 500,000 annually, well below the amount it needs. Well, on the front line now, at least 2 people have been killed after a Russian drone attack hit the Ukrainian city of Sumy. According to authorities, the strike also left some 12 others injured. Residential apartment buildings, a shop and cars were damaged in the strike. In recent weeks, Russia has targeted critical infrastructure in the area, which is about 30 kilometers from the Russian border. And on the other hand, Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov says that Russian forces in Ukraine had accelerated their advance. According to open source data, Moscow's forces have been advancing in the last 2 months at their fastest rate since March 2022. Video released by the Defense Ministry shows Mr. Belousov visiting a command post said to be in Ukraine and awarding medals for bravery to Russian servicemen. On Thursday, Russia's Defense Ministry said that its forces had captured the eastern Ukrainian village of Dalny in the Donetsk region, a focal point of their advance and the 33-month-old war. Now let's discuss all these developments. International affairs analyst Yinka Oyoniji joins us now from East Midlands in the UK. Yinka, great to have you on the show today. You seem pretty cold.
It is what it is.
It is what it is at the end of the month. Right, so I know you've always been vocal about your stance on the Russia-Ukraine war. Let's begin with your honest assessment as to the Biden administration's approval for Ukraine to use U.S. long-range missile to strike deep into Russia. What consequences do you think this would have as regards to the dynamics of the war?
All right, I'll probably start from the instruction or the authorization by the outgoing United States president. Many of the International Committee of Nations have supported Ukraine up until now in no small way to ensure that it can defend itself against the war visited on it by Russia. However, it is interesting to note that Biden will wait until now to keep that mandate to use long-range missiles. So what is Biden thinking? In the local politics in the United States, we now know After about 2-3 weeks, Trump is a president-elect. But Biden has been referred to as a sitting lame duck. So almost everybody in the United States, even in the international community, would want to see Trump already in the White House. And I had said here, possibly you can call that a prophecy. I told you that we won't have a change in what is happening up until Trump assumes presidency. This was even many months before the elections. So it's curious to see Biden approving this use of exceptional missile belonging to the United States at this time in the twilight of his administration when he's about to exit office. However, I don't think that Russia can do more than it has done. Okay, so Biden too may be calculating that to say, you know what, we are in the dying moments of the administration. So you see that is somewhat defiant considering Benjamin Netanyahu's purported arrest by the International Criminal Court. So Biden at this point is no longer bothered. There's nothing to share at this time. So he's giving that order. And I don't think even Putin and the rest of them know that as soon as Trump assumes office, it's going to be sort of a stalemate. So everybody's just grasping at what they can do now before the inauguration of the next US president by the 20th of January 2025. So this is the last opportunity. The remaining weeks constitute the last opportunity for the aggressors to continue to visit aggression on countries. So you may see Israel continuing to bombard Hamas, and then you would see Russia continuing also to try to move further into Ukraine. And then you also find other European countries giving out extra aids to Ukraine to ensure that they can push it over for the next few weeks. So I don't expect any exceptional devastation. There will continue to be tests, that's what I call it, of those missiles. Unfortunately, for those who are victims, they don't consider it. But this is what is going to be. The next few weeks is going to maintain this momentum, but don't expect anything more devastating than we have now in the next few weeks before the inauguration of the 47th president of the United States.
So you don't think that Ukraine's claim that this is something, this could escalate the war, you don't think that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks?
No, it's not going to happen. It's propaganda. So Russia will continue to make empty boasts of what it will do, obliterating London and all of that. That's not going to happen. And then North Korea will also continue to make allegations. It's propaganda. Propaganda comes with what? To tell you the honest truth. Don't expect Putin to be in office for more than the next 2-3 years. His extended presidency of Russia ends soon because he's not going to be able to record any gains there. Zelensky himself, because war helps to perpetuate leaders in office, especially when they show that they are sort of wartime leaders. So even Zelensky himself is becoming a little unpopular at home. And the person who will probably take over from him is already waiting in the wings, which is the reason why he reshuffled his administration. So this war, if you ask me, has already satisfied its objective, which is to hold power locally in each of those countries. And once it's no longer tenable, if you cannot show any gains, Ukraine may be able to show a bit of it because it's now have increased artillery and armament. So that's something to show. The whole attention of the world is received aids from EU countries, America, and all of that. A bit of gains to show. But at some point, in no distant future, the economy will bear out the consequences of this war. And I'm certain that there will be leadership changes in all of those countries.
And, Putin also has made threats against the US and, of course, European countries that allow its weapons to be used against Moscow. So do you think, in light of what you have said, these are empty threats?
Definitely they are. There's nothing Putin can do about it. China can't join in the war as of this moment, and Russia has been trying to get China's attention for at least 2 years since this war began. But take note that China needs the United States to be able to have a stabilized economy. So China, the trade war between China and US cannot take off as of yet. And Trump has already made electoral promises signifying that he's going to concentrate on strengthening the U.S. economy locally. So no one will want to do anything that will further destabilize economies of the world. And I would say here, maybe you're going to hear it for the first time again, there's going to be an economic shock towards the fourth quarter of next year. So you see that the United Kingdom is already increasing tax rates and all of that to stabilize the economy in the first quarter of 2025. You'll find that Germany is also trying to improve its immigration and economic policy to ensure that they can stabilize their economies. So I'm hoping that we won't even have some kind of food crisis next year. So we can't escalate beyond what we have right now. A lot of investment has gone into this needless war, if you ask me. And that is not going to, everybody will fight the remaining weeks of this war with both eyes opened. So I don't think that anything else can go beyond what we have at the moment.
Right. And what do you think of, the allegations that UN sanctions have been broken with the sale of oil to Pyongyang by Russia more than it's supposed to do?
Nobody cares about that. The United Nations relies on US to finance it. And Mr. Trump is not going to do any more of that when he assumes office. The same thing with the International Criminal Court. Nobody's going to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. Again, a lot depends on the remaining few weeks of this year and into 2025. So Russia can take all the oil that it wants to sell to North Korea. That is going to end once Trump gets into office. And I also foresee that actually Russia may be able to get some reliefs, economic reliefs, as conditions for ending the war. So this is like emergency relief between now and January 20th. Right after that, everybody comes to the negotiation table. And then I believe that even North Korea will be forced. And North Korea is grandstanding at this time so that it becomes a stakeholder when the process of de-escalating the war commences in earnest in January. So this is the remaining time you have to do business that you won't be able to do in a short while. And a lot of things will change within these remaining few weeks.
Right. International affairs analyst who joined us from London, the UK today, Yinka Oyiniji. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend ahead.